Hey, 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 MOMnation. Welcome back to another episode of Mental Wealth where we work on ourselves so we don't pass it down to our kids, Laura.
I know. Let's not pass it down. Pass good stuff down.
Mm-hmm. Like
not the bad
recipes
stuff.
and things.
Yeah, like recipes. That's right. And, kindness and hard work and, those kinds of things. But what I don't want to pass down is anxiety and, overthinking and stress and trauma.
And our trauma responses that we
Yes.
haven't worked through yet so that they become their trauma responses and they have no idea why they have them.
Right. Like yelling, avoiding, those kinds of things.
Yeah, totally a thing. Well, today I'm going to jump right into it because often if you've been watching us hopefully for the entire time that we've been here, which is years now, which is so awesome, years, you'll know that sometimes we choose a post either in the MOMnation Facebook group or somewhere else in Facebook land. Sometimes we see these posts elsewhere and we talk about it. We react to it. We talk through it. And Laura always gives very insightful, very valuable advice. We can say advice, right? I mean,
we can say advice. We can say insight. We can say advice.
Yeah. So we're going to do just that today. We've got a good one for you guys. Let me just pop it up on the screen here so that you can see it. There it is. And I'll read it for those that are just listening on the podcast platforms here. So it is a MOMnation Arizona, which is our Facebook group post. And this one came out a little while ago, Laura. And I don't know if you saw it, but it came out at the end of April. So this one is just a couple of months old. And she goes on to say, moms, can we talk expectations? That's a big word. I feel overwhelmed most days. I have a mix of ages among my children and don't ever feel I can breathe. If it's not being an Uber for some, it's a mediator and judge for others. And I thought once they moved out and started families, they would be self-sufficient, but I have to be counselor. And at the moment, if I want to see my grandchildren. Oh, okay. So she has to be counselor, which is there's strings attached to that, it sounds like. I'm expected to cross all my boundaries or be alone the rest of my life. I feel like I'm failing and disappointing everyone most days and can't catch my breath on others. I know I'm not the only one who feels like this, not at all. Or maybe I'm just doing motherhood wrong. How often have we felt that way?
Oh, man.
At this point, I just want to hide, but I still have little ones at home, so I have to just smile and keep going. Some days I wish I had a partner, and on others, I'm glad that I don't have the stress of a relationship. My emotions are everywhere, and I can't regulate them because I can't think straight. I only get a minute to myself when I get home from work and sit in my car for 2 minutes before everyone knows I'm home. Been there.
So much.
Am I alone in feeling this way?
Oh, man.
Is she alone, Laura?
I was going to say the first thing is that no, you are not alone. Like at all. That is such a relatable post. Like, I mean, I, as a mom of 3 kids who 2 of them are adults, one of them is about to be, like, it's so hard and it doesn't change when they are adults from the perspective of like, it's still really hard. And like, you still just have a lot of worry. It's just, you're worried about different things and you still have a lot of responsibility. You're just responsible for different things. And what I've noticed is that the mindset, like the mom guilt or mindset, is different when they're gone than it is when they're at home. And I just think it's so complicated and so hard.
Is that because you're running the tape of their lives and what impact and effect that you may or may not have had?
Yeah, it's like this weird combination of like accountabilities. So it's like, is this my fault that they're like this? Or is it their accountability that they need to get like their shit together or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, and that's where the boundaries come in. And like, you know, this mom's talking about how it's like a violation of her boundaries. Like she doesn't know where these boundaries are. And it's like, I can totally feel that, because it's like, at what point do you say like, no, I can't help you with this? Or, you know, at what point is it okay for them to say like, well, it's your fault that this happened? Where's the line of like respecting the boundaries and also like maintaining a relationship? I don't know. It's hard.
Well, right. And then how do you stop the guilt from eating you alive?
I think that part is a really big one for me. I mean, the first thing I'm going to say is therapy.
Yeah.
Because so parenting is traumatic. Like motherhood is a traumatic experience. And I can think of a handful of times where during therapy, I targeted, and when I say target, I mean really tried to work on a specific event and memory that to like process so that it sort of stopped triggering me so much. This one memory or this one thing that I kept thinking about or ruminating on. That's what I mean by targeted. And I would target like specific things that happened with me and the kids where I would have maybe done something that I regret, or where they said something that really hurt me, or there was an event and I wasn't there, or like they were struggling and I couldn't help them. Like targeting those events to really process through them in my mind helped me get out of my guilt and get, you know, kind of see a bigger picture and say, life is hard and complicated and dynamic. And there's events that happen that are beyond our control. And there's so many variables besides just us, right? Like their relationships with other people matter, and the relationship that we have with them matters too. And as for every single mom out there who wants it to be enough that they have a good relationship with them, like, and that is going to like save the whole world, like, it's such a crushing disappointment to us as a single mom myself. It's crushing to know that like, I can't be the one that saves everything just by maintaining a good relationship, just by doing the right thing, just by being, no matter how perfect of a mom I could be, which I wasn't, but just saying like, if there was an opportunity for me to be this perfect mom, like, because there's other people out there, like their dad and their grandparents and their family, their, you know, extended family and their friends and their teachers. There's so many other people in their lives that they have to have healthy relationships with in order to have this, you know, uneventful childhood that we all really want them to have.
Yeah.
But that's just not possible. We can't do it all.
Truly not. And especially not once they are creating and maintaining their own adult lives.
Right.
Like how much failure, and I'm my kid's only 11, and I honestly think about this already. Like how much failure of theirs, because we know failure is a learning experience. We learn from that, right? How much failure am I okay with?
Right. What's your threshold? What's your limit for, or like your tolerance for your kids to fail? My tolerance was low. I did a lot of rescuing, and I regret that now. Like, I think I would have rescued less and let them be, and just like supported more. I would have just like shown up differently. Like, instead of saying like, okay, we're going to fix this, let me step in. It would be, I'm so sorry you're going through this. This is so hard. And I didn't always have the highest tolerance for them to go through distress. Yeah.
And I can feel that even with an 11-year-old, I don't have the highest tolerance for any distress for him. Even, you know, since he was a baby, I've been trying to let go a little bit and let him kind of fall a little bit, and like let him, you know, for example, mess up on his homework so he understands what it's like to not get a grade that he needs in order to pass the class, so that, you know what I mean? Like that happened this past year. I finally was like, okay, Mom, you got to stop doing the kid's homework. I mean, I wasn't like doing his homework, but you know what I mean? Like I was there. And so his homework was good and it was passed in on time. And I did let him kind of miss that a couple of times this year. You know, and being in the 5th grade where things are very different or not quite high school like, but very different from 1 through 4 or K through 4. He felt that pain a little bit. And honestly, like it was emotional. We had some days where we cried, both of us.
Right.
You know, but even with an 11-year-old that I have at home, I'm struggling with how much failure can I tolerate and still be okay knowing that he's learning from these experiences. I mean, obviously I'm not going to let the guy, you know, jump off a 3-story building onto a flaming house, whatever, you know what I mean? Like I'm not going to let it get to dangerous levels if I can help that. But how much am I okay with? And how do I, and is that a moving target?
I think it's a moving target. So as you're telling me the story, I'm thinking about my son who is in the military. And when he was joining the military and going through boot camp and, you know, would tell me all these things that were like, boot camp is not a nice place. Like it's it's not it's not a nurturing place.
No.
And it was really hard for me to like read these letters and hear him struggle and know that like I can't do anything about it. And like at any time something could happen and it could derail him and I can't do anything about it. And that was really hard. I remember really feeling helpless. And I think that helplessness can kind of hinder our ability to support them. And so like, I want us to not be helpless. I want us to be calm, confident. I say that all the time, but like, I want us to be firm in our own awareness that they are capable, that they are capable of making it through the distress. And I think, so there's this term that we use in psychology called learned helplessness. And I may have talked about this a little bit before, but learned helplessness is basically the concept of like, if you're constantly being rescued and saved from your distress, then you're learning that you're not capable of handling distress.
There's another piece of that also, you're learning that somebody's just going to come and rescue, so you don't really need to.
Yeah. So it diminishes our motivation. It diminishes our confidence. It, you know, makes us feel worthless. It makes us feel incapable. It makes us feel like out of our depth, like overwhelmed, unable to move forward, unable to do what we need to do. And so when it comes to, I just keep thinking about that all caps expectations in the post.
Yeah.
When it comes to expectations, it's like, I expect you to be accountable for your actions, and I expect you to utilize your resources when you're in distress. Meaning if you're suffering or struggling, you can reach out and say, but in a appropriate and like respectful and like honest way. Like, hey, I'm really struggling right now. I need help. What can I do? You know, what are my resources? What are my options? But I expect you to be accountable and be responsible for implementing those processes and plans. And if it's like, well, I need money, and then it's like, I need money again, and then I need money again. It's like, okay, well, what are you doing to prevent this from happening again in the future?
Yeah, that's giant. That sounds, let's bring it back to one of our favorite words, boundaries. That sounds like boundary talk right there. And speaking of a moving target, can boundaries be a moving target too?
I think so. I think it depends on the age of the kids, right? Like I don't know if you remember our boundary episode or one of them where where I mentioned like boundaries with our kids, and you were like, boundaries with your kids? Like, oh, that's a thing. that I need to think about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this was like early on, and it's like, so your kids are so little. Like he was so little when we started. I mean, I guess not so little, but like a 7-year-old is a lot different than an 11-year-old,
Then
right?
yours. Yeah.
And so what boundaries do you have with a 7-year-old? What boundaries do you have with an 11-year-old? What boundaries do you have with a 17-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 21-year-old? What do those look like? I think they do evolve over time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like this mom looks like she's dealing with a couple of different age groups. I think she even said that. And she's a grandma as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of boundary making at different levels with different people, I feel like. Especially being a single mom.
Yeah, that's a complicated role. Like the more we do this show and like the older I get and the older my kids get, the more I realize just how internally difficult it is to be a woman, to be a mom, to be a grandma, to be an aunt, to be all these things to all these people. And what that looks like for us internally is like, who are we? Where am I in this? And I hear that in her, right? Like, she's like, yeah. I can't even think straight. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, where everything's everywhere all at once. And it's like, we need to have support. We need to have connection with other people who are able to like talk us through. Like I met with a colleague the other day and we just sat and talked and had like a really great like consultation where we talked about work, but then we talked about life. And like me and you, when we do this show, like we always talk before we start recording, and like just those little connections are really meaningful and they help us contain our own sense of ourself. Mm-hmm. As a human being that is not just a person to another. Like we have to accept ourselves in the context of a whole individual, you know, outside of the context of our relationships with people. But that's so muddy to me. Mm-hmm. The older I get and the more my kids are older and, you know, all these different things, like it's hard to maintain that individualized sense of self.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get things, especially as women, thrown at us a bunch, like perimenopause, for example.
Right. Like that doesn't help us regulate our experience.
Right. And now we're dealing with that. And I mean, I'm like smack dab in the middle of it. So I feel like I can talk about it here. And we're still expected. Is that an expectation of others that have of us, or is it what we have of ourselves ultimately, right? Still expected to function and do all the things and be everything that we ever were, or even more in some cases. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's really difficult, especially when you're dealing with a major change in your own body, to keep that going, keep all those plates in the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a lot of demands that are imposed on us that are unfair and that feel impossible, like insurmountable. Like we have so much that is expected of us that is just unreasonable, you know, and we have to be the responsible one, the accountable one to set those boundaries and uphold them and enforce them. And like, without support, with what are we working with? You know, we need to have that support in our lives, whether that's therapy, friends, family, all of those, you know, like, and I can totally relate where she's saying, you know, sometimes I wish I had a partner, but other times I'm like, I'm glad I don't have a partner. Like I'm right on my own.
It's just another layer of people that expect something from me.
That's right. Yeah. And so I'm a single mom, but I have a partner. We don't live together and we never have lived together. And so I've largely raised my kids on my own. And then I have the relationship that I have, which is largely separate from that. And, you know, and that's a layer of like, okay, is that taking away from the kids? Is that taking away from my partner? Is that taking away from me? Like who's winning here? And I think that it is easy for everything to feel so chaotic emotionally And, I can relate to her when she said there's no time to herself except when she sits in her car for a couple minutes when she gets home. I made a TikTok about that once, like sit in your car for a couple minutes, like after work, like just hang out, sit there. Don't even open the garage. Like do it before, like figure out a way to like stealth, find a minute, park down the street before you even get home.
Right.
Give yourself 10 minutes, 15 minutes, listen to a podcast, listen to, like a 15-minute daily meditation podcast or a daily mindfulness podcast or true crime. I don't care, whatever you want, but like take your minute and own that minute. They'll be okay. They'll be there when you get done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, granted, things can happen, but not on a regular basis. I would expect not a whole lot. It's not going to be a whole lot different 15 minutes later if you walk in 15 minutes. You know what I mean? I'm saying, like,
right.
But it's kind of like, I heard this quote. This isn't mine, but it's so perfect. Having time to yourself, whether it be meditation or, like you said, just zoning out, listening to a podcast, just being there for yourself for a minute. It's the difference between vacuuming with the vacuum plugged in or not. So like you're still vacuuming, what I'm saying? Like, and then you're not taking the time. So if you're not taking the time for you, your vacuum's like not plugged in.
Right.
Did I say that right? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. It's like you're still doing all the things. The time is still going by. The work is still happening. The cognitive overhead is still there. The emotional overhead is still there. The time is going by, whether you plug in the vacuum or not.
Mm-hmm.
If you plug it in, you're going to get a lot more for that time.
Right.
Than if you just muddle through and sort of ignore that it's not plugged in and just go through the motions of it.
And still try to do the job that it would have done if it were plugged in.
Mm-hmm. And then you're just going to be like, why isn't this working? I'm spinning my wheels. I'm burnt out.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have any other examples of maybe some things that you've done when your kiddos were home? I know they're not all home with you at this point because they're older, but any other examples of sometime maybe that you sort of were able to get away, were able to spend a little moment with yourself? Or did you fall victim to what we all fall victim to and just kind of forget about that part and kind of forget about yourself and kind of forget about spending that time?
I think it depended on the phase or stage of life that I was in. Like there were times when I wasn't taking time to myself and I was just putting everything first and everyone first and not doing anything for myself. And it was just like survival, running all the time, exhaustion. And then there was other times when I had a bigger social circle where I could take time and we could have the adults talk while the kids go play. Like we used to have like dinner parties.
Oh, fun.
And the adults would hang out and the kids would play. And they're all right there, so like everyone's safe. But it was a nice way to have some adult time and still like take care of the kids. So like, I think that's really helpful. I think, connecting with other moms who are going through the same thing and who you can just talk to about how hard it is and who aren't going to try to fix it for you. And they're just going to say like, yeah, right. Like they're going to co-sign on how difficult it is. And they're going to be there with you in it and relate with you and make you feel heard and seen. I can't stress enough the social aspect of this, like the connection, because when you're doing it all the time and you're doing it all alone, it's so much harder. And your brain, your mind gets just jumbled up and bogged down and you can't sort it out. You need someone else to like throw out some stuff and then have them respond and be connected. And that helps organize the content in your mind, that helps organize the stuff in your brain that, so that you can regulate those emotions so that it's not just chaos all the time.
Yeah. So, how sometimes we go a little primal here? This is going to be one of those times. Do you think, and I believe this, and I haven't even really researched it or really thought about it much, but it's the belief that I have. I don't believe that we were ever meant to do this stuff on our own. Like when we think way back in the hunting and gathering days, like they had little tribes, they had little groups, they all helped each other out. They lived in close quarters. They were assisting one another, right? So it kind of makes sense. And the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child, right? Like I feel like those are valuable things, and we get lost and we forget that. And having, social media and having the World Wide Web, I can't believe I just called it that, the internet. Dated myself. But anyway, these things allow us to feel connected, but it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same. And like these things can help facilitate connection in a really healthy way. Like if you are using them optimally and not, getting stuck in the comparisons or getting stuck in this doom scrolling of, all these ideas that you're never going to implement, like all these projects that you're never going to do, all these, like, saving all these ideas that are just these recipes that you're never going to make that just make you feel bad about yourself.
Right.
There's that option. Or there's, like what MOMnation does and, what other groups do is facilitate connection. Like I love when I see moms post like, hey, I'm going to this park. Who wants to meet me there at 2? We're going to have a picnic lunch. My kids are 4 years old and 6 years old. Right.
Yeah.
And then other moms are on there. They're like, oh, I'll come. Like I'll wear a red shirt. Like you do that. And it's like, I love that we're using this as a way to connect in real life.
Mm-hmm. That's the piece. That's the important piece, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the important piece.
Agreed. I want to, and I don't know if you have any thoughts about this. We don't have a lot of information on this one portion that really stuck out to me in her post. And I know we probably need a lot more information in order to really deep dive it, but I'm wondering if you have any sort of off the top of your head thoughts about this seemingly strings attached to having to be there for her adult children that have children in order to maintain a relationship with her grandkids. That stuck out to me as a big ouch.
Yeah. I wonder, so I have more questions too. Like, does that mean that the kids are behaving or the adult kids, does that mean that the adults are behaving in a way that is manipulative or, like restricting access to their kids if they aren't being given like money or other types of assistance? Like, I don't know. And I hope that's not the case. If that is the case, like that's a bigger issue. And I think, that warrants, like you said, a deeper dive.
Yeah.
But if it's the feeling of, if I don't do this, they're going to take the kids away, or like they don't want to spend time with me and I won't get to see them. I think some healthy adult communication could be helpful here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It could be that she's just saying, hey, if I don't give the counselor thing or the money or whatever it is that I'm giving, then they don't care. Like they're just going to go do their own thing. They don't need me for anything else. That like sounds like maybe there's a relationship deepening that needs to happen, maybe, if that's the case.
Yeah, like I like the idea of like a weekly dinner, or even like bi-weekly, like every 2 weeks, like have dinner or breakfast or brunch or something like that. Like that might not always be feasible for every family, but maybe even monthly get together. That could be nice and helpful. But we both have to, in adult relationships, we both have to make efforts to connect with one another. And if we're doing the only outreach, that can feel really one-sided and upsetting. But we also have to know that like sometimes the adult child isn't necessarily, they haven't worked through their stuff enough to like do that outreach, and they're suffering or struggling on their own, and they've got their own stuff and they can't pay their rent, or they are struggling at work, or they, all the 20 somethings life struggles.
Right.
So we work a little harder than they do at it. And we can change our perception about that. If it's like, I'm outreaching and they're not outreaching, like, okay, we can accept that on a level. So trying to make plans, trying to do things, not really expecting a lot in return. Like, we have to make sure that we're not expecting reciprocation from our kids because they don't technically owe us anything.
Right.
But we also don't have to give them everything. Like, we can say no. And if we say no and they react by saying, well, you can't see your grandkid anymore, then like, that's a deeper issue. That's a response to trauma. That's a bigger problem that like requires professional help. Because that's not okay. Like, that's not appropriate human behavior.
No. Yeah.
And that's not okay for them to do. And so I really hope that's not happening. Because that's awful.
That is awful. And I feel like, so I've kind of been guilty of this before. I get really busy and I look up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to my mom in like 3 weeks. What the heck? You know, and she's a pretty good initiator. And to get around that, we both have pretty busy schedules. We have planned, like you said, we do Sunday night family dinner. So it's either her house, my house, whatever. When my in-laws are around, they're included as well. But I think you're going to say yes to this question, but I could be surprised. Do you think it's worth, or do you think we should be having conversations? Like, for instance, if that did bother my mom, or if that did make her feel like she's the one making more of the effort for our relationship, like, sit me down and be like, hey babes, we got to talk. Like, I'm feeling some sort of way and I need to talk it through with you. And I'm feeling like I'm the one giving and always trying to maintain this relationship. You just seem really busy. Like, what's going on? Like, how, if you think that's appropriate, how would you facilitate that conversation? Like, how do you open that, you know?
Well, I like the idea of what you said, like, to kind of say like, hey, you know, I want to bring this up because it's been on my heart. Like, it's been kind of bothering me. Like, I feel like you've been really busy lately and we haven't been able to connect. And I wonder, is everything okay? You know, like, what's been going on with you? I want to make sure that I'm not bothering you, but I want to also still catch up with you, and I miss you.
Yeah.
You know, so kind of checking in, like, are you okay? You seem kind of distant or busy, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Communication is, like, I know we say this a lot, but it's just so important. It's so important to share what's going on, because oftentimes I'll see posts on Facebook that say, you know, I always have to, like, this is more for friends and stuff. I don't often see it between family members, but, you know, I'm always reaching out to so-and-so to do something or to connect or to maintain our friendship, and so-and-so never does it back. And so, like, I'm done. And I don't, and I'm just kind of like, that's kind of a generic version of the post that I see, because, you know, many different posts that say different things, but that's basically the bottom line of it. And I think to myself, I'm like, boy, like, we all filter things differently. We all think differently. We all have different expectations of each other and ourselves. And, like, have you ever brought it up and just been like, hey, I'm kind of feeling like I'm the one doing all the heavy lifting here for our relationship. Like, I don't know, maybe the other person likes that, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So some people are like the glue, right? Some people are the social person that, like, keeps everybody together and, like, reaches out and does all that. And then there's other people who are not great at that.
Right.
Like, I'm not great at it. I'm not great at reaching out. Like, time goes by and then I'm like, holy moly, it's been a month. You know, I haven't, you know, seen this person or responded to their text message that they sent me 3 weeks ago. Like, I literally, like, it's a problem. So I need to be accountable. That's on me. I need to do better. But if I'm upsetting somebody and they're feeling like, hey, like, I don't feel like you're as invested in this. Like it kind of hurts my feelings when I reach out to you all the time and you don't reach out to me. Like, oh, shoot. Okay. Gosh, I feel awful. I'm so sorry that happened. Like my response would be like, thank you for telling me that. And I want to do everything I can to, remedy that. And like, I'll be more accountable because this relationship matters to me.
Right.
The person might be like, I'm just not good at it.
Yeah. And it's like you just confessed, and I agreed because I'm the same. I'm just not good at it. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I don't love others or I don't love my friends and I don't love my family and I don't love my cousins and all of that. I don't know. I'm just not good at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then there's people who might respond and be like, I don't want to do that. I'm not good at it and I won't change. And I don't have any desire to make an effort. And then you can be like, okay, well, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah. You can make that decision at that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I do think it's important to connect and communicate. And whether it's with your kids or with, your friends, like it really feels like this mom in the post might need to have a family meeting, like might benefit from having a family meeting and be like, hey, I am like struggling as a human being. Like I feel like pulled in 1,000 different directions and I love you guys and I want to like connect and hang out with you. Can we all have a Sunday dinner? Can we all, get together once a month? Can we make sure that we're staying on track because I don't want to, miss out on anything. And, I think also to say if the kids at home, so like I'm only imagining, but like I imagine that maybe the kids at home are asking too much and not contributing enough. Like perhaps there needs to be some chores in place. Perhaps there needs to be some responsibilities and expectations placed on others. Cause like I can relate to this. I didn't give my kids a lot of chores. I regret that deeply. I did at first, like when they were young, but then like the older they got, the harder it was, the busier they work. They're not home when I need the stuff done. Like I need the dishes done, but they're at work. And so I'm just going to do it, like that kind of thing. So as they got older, the chores really fell off. And then I get resentful because I'm like, you guys aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm mad. And it's like, well, I'm mad, but I really didn't ask them to do it or expect them to do it. I'm not expecting anything from them and they're doing nothing and that's upsetting me. So I need to make the expectations and I need to say, hey, the expectation is this. Like my friend used this language the other day. She was like, the expectation is that we sweep every day. Like we have the dog's shed. Like the expectation is that we do this every day, period. Just that's it. And I was like, I love that. Love that sentence. I want to use it.
I love that.
It doesn't have to be a fight.
Right. It doesn't have to be a fight. Communication does not equal argument. And I know some people that are actually pretty close to me that kind of, won't say that, but the way that they behave when hard conversations are presented, that communication is like somehow negative, like an argument or a fight. That's not. I mean, as long as you present it right.
Yeah. And can be intimidating. It can be stressful. Like, and I think about the response, right? Like if the kids give you attitude, you have a choice. You can say like, don't give me an attitude. Now it's a fight. When you're talking about the chores. Like, so let's say, okay, the expectation is that you sweep every day. And then they're like, I'm gonna let that go. I'm gonna let the sigh, the eye roll, I'm gonna let all that go because we're still gonna sweep every day. So like, whatever. If it turns into, F you, I'm not doing that. Okay, I'm gonna address that. Like, but we want to pick our spots when it comes to how long do we want this conversation to go? And is the expectation that you do the chores with a smile on your face, or is the expectation that you do the chores? If it's that you do it with a smile on your face, I think you're going to have a harder time.
Yeah.
But okay. right? Like that's the expectation. Then there needs to be a consequence. Then we need to like get into, you know, the whole, how difficult that is for everyone to just like act with a smile all the time. Like I don't have a smile on my face all the time when I'm doing my chores. You know what I mean?
No,
So
same.
want to think about that. But I do think that as moms, we need to expect that our kids are contributing to the house. And that's important for them.
Absolutely. And the whole doing it with a smile on your face thing, I feel like that indicates something that we've talked about a bunch, is that parents have a hard time seeing their kids in distress. So they don't want to. So we're trying to like, I mean, I'm not saying I do this, but you know, some who maybe people who are doing this, trying to remove that distress for themselves by
for sure.
making you smile.
Yeah, like I need you to be happy all the time.
Yeah.
Which is hard. I mean, gosh, I feel like that sometimes. Like I have a hard time when my kids have their feelings hurt.
Yeah, same.
I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. It makes me upset.
Same.
And when I'm the one who hurt their feelings, I like that even less. And it makes me really upset. And I need to remember in those moments, and this is an active every single time this happens, I do this talk myself through it kind of thing, because it is hard. When they're upset, I say like, it's okay for them to be upset. I remember my therapist said that to me one time. She was like, I think it's okay for your kid to be upset. And I was like, huh, okay, I guess you're right.
I suppose.
But I had to learn that, right? And so I talk myself through it. I say to myself, like, it's okay for them to be upset. Upsetness is not a big deal. Like they can handle being upset. They can get over it. They can get past it. They can move through it.
Well, and it's probably a learning experience too, because if we don't feel certain emotions, how do we know how to regulate those emotions? How do we know how to, you know, get through that? So total learning experience.
Someone asked me the other day in one of my class. So one of the classes I was teaching, one of my students asked, she said, can parents who coddle their kids too much also create these traumatic responses and have dysregulated kids? And I said, absolutely.
I would say, yeah.
Because what we're doing is we're teaching them to be afraid of their emotions. We're teaching them to be unable to tolerate emotional distress. And we're teaching them that they're not capable. And we're teaching them that it's bad to be upset. And so when we coddle our kids, we're really doing them a disservice. Now, there's a difference between coddling and nurturing. Like we can be kind and like supportive and nurturing while they're upset without trying to like fix everything for them.
Or without trying to sweep it under the rug and make it not be and make it not happen.
Right, like, yeah, the phrase like, don't be upset.
Ugh, I hate it.
I know, but it's like such an instinct, right? Like it's like such a reflex sometimes, like, oh, don't be upset. But it's like, no, I shouldn't have said that. Like, you know, it's okay to be upset. That's the answer. It's okay to be upset. And it's only, you know, we have to behave appropriately when we're upset. Like here are some ways that we can behave appropriately. Right.
Sounds like another show.
I know.
We got to dive into that one.
Options.
Is there anything else about this post that you want to add?
I think I just want to end with where we started, which is like, you're not alone in thinking like this and feeling like this, like at all. And it's not because you're doing it wrong. It's hard because it's genuinely, objectively hard, not because you're doing it wrong.
I totally agree. And like, I can just think of probably thousands of times when I've felt like that. I mean, I probably felt like that 3 times today.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Oh, my heart goes out to her.
I know, mine too.
All right, ladies. If you want to check out any of our previous episodes, and you know you do, hop on over to our YouTube channel. It is at MOMnation USA. That's our handle. Scroll down just a little ways. You will see the playlist for mental wealth. It's beautiful, brilliant yellow, so you cannot miss it. Or at the top of that homepage, click on podcasts, because mental wealth has its very own podcast through YouTube. If you prefer to listen to all of our shows on your favorite podcast platform, do a quick search for MOMnation Talk Radio. There you'll find us. Like, download, subscribe, all the things. You will never miss an episode. And we will see you, my dear friend Laura, next month.
See you then.
Bye, guys.
Feeling overwhelmed or stuck in patterns you don't understand? Meet Laura Olivieri Wood, licensed counselor, board-approved clinical supervisor, and founder of Benavieri. Benavieri offers specialized care using a proven model that bridges generational gaps with plans tailored just for you. Laura Wood offers a free mini course where you'll discover how your brain processes life and learn 3 simple ways to reset when it all feels like too much. Your past doesn't define you. Let's unlock the future together. Connect with Laura Wood